Welcome to the city of joy, Kolkata. This is our studios, Sabha TV studio in Merchant Chamber of Commerce. I have a distinguished panel of guests with me. On my right immediately is Mr. Nirupam Sen, former Minister, Industry Minister. I have with me Mr. Sanjay Agrawal, Managing Director, Century Plyboards, Mr. Amitabh Kothari, Managing Partner, Kothari and Company, and Mr. Anupam Shah, Director, NIFA Exports, and Mr. Saikat Ray. He is Professor at Jadavpur University. My first question to you, sir. The first question is, now this is supposed to be a budget just before election year. We go in for general elections. Do you see this budget as really going in for preparing for general elections? Does it cater to that or not?
I don't think so, because though it has been stated in the budget speech by Honorable Finance Minister that this budget is an inclusive as well as sustainable budget proposal that he has made before the Parliament. And on this aspect, he has mainly emphasized on the growth rate of our economy, which is quite alarming at this present moment, which is 5%, which is projected to be 6.1 to 6.7%, and he is expecting it to grow at 8%, which is the target which has been achieved in the 11th five-year plan. Now, coming to this question, if it is 8% growth, I think within next 2 years, if it can achieve, whether it will be achieved or not, I am not going into that. But even
it's a challenge.
Yeah, even it is 8% growth, then will it be inclusive and sustainable? That is the basic question that I like to put forward. Because you just see when this 8% growth in the entire 11th plan period, what Finance Minister has said that growth was on an average 8%, which he wants to achieve in the next 1 or 2 fiscal years. Now, in this 8% growth in the 11th plan, if you see the employment rate, generation of employment.
That's the economic survey.
The National Sample Survey Organization has reported that during last 5 years, this has not. Therefore, the trajectory that the government of India has taken on the growth path, this trajectory itself is exclusive in nature. It is not at all inclusive in nature. And there is no such steps to include all those people which he promises to include in his budget speech. Therefore, in that sense, if you tell, they say
exclusive budget, not an inclusive budget. I'll get in this, Sanjay. Sanjay, on the aspect of growth, do you think he actually manages to address it? Because see, he's hiked up health sector outlay, education, rural, agriculture, all that he's tried to do. And also try to bring in credit for the agricultural side. But do you think that is what the industry really needs to get growth?
See, Finance Minister himself actually accepted that these are challenging times. And in challenging times, I think we needed a more challenging budget. He has certainly tried in his all his best ways. He has identified the issues very, very well. He is bang on identifying the issues and trying to address them. And I am sure that this is not the time when actually in one budget or probably in 1 year he can handle these situations, because the situation across the world is like that. The foreign exchange situation you see the deficit, everything is in a real difficulty.
I'll just get in Amitabh. Amitabh, a lot of money from you people will be taken away. 10% surcharge. So which essentially means all you people who had 1 crore and above will have to give 10% now to the government. How good is it?
Abhitanshu, we don't mind paying 10%. I mean, provided the objective is achieved. There was a lot of expectation from the Finance Minister. Unfortunately, that has been belied. If you look at the stock market, which is called the barometer, it has nosedived. And I do not find any direction in the budget. A direction as to the growth, a direction besides tinkering with the various tax laws here and there. Nothing concrete has been done to really give an impetus or a boost to growth. Now, if you look at simply levying a tax of 10% surcharge on 42,600 persons, or surcharge on companies having taxable income exceeding 10 crores of rupees, and that too for 1 year, is not going to help unless some concrete steps, because the finance minister himself said in the budget speech that what I want to do is India should be a country where it will be easy to carry on business, where it will be convenient for any investor to come in, and the laws should be investor friendly. Unfortunately, I do not find any.
There's no walk the talk.
Yes.
I'll get in, Anupam, on the export bit. Were you expecting something really big that you did not get anything? I mean, did not get?
You know, when the finance minister mentioned that 43% of our GDP is exports and imports, then we were hoping to hear something more, because you know the trade deficit is increasing to $200 billion. We are inching there, but in the next breath, when we heard that the foreign trade policy will be dealt with one month, or rather next month, by the Honorable Commerce Minister, you know, we were hoping to hear something more from him, even, you know, words of, you know, support for the exporting community. Because if you look at exports, you know, they have been not doing well. So we were hoping to hear something more from
Which you did not get.
which we didn't get.
I'll get Mr. Secretary. Sir, on the education front,
Yeah.
do you really think, I mean, just by hiking the outlay, we'll be able to achieve?
See, if you look at the nominal outlay has been hiked, but if you look at it in terms of real, if you deduct the inflation rate from that 6 to 7% inflation rate, then the hike is not much. And then next thing is that for education sector, the money should not really go to the higher education sector, where it has gone in now, to BHU, to AMU, they have given. Where it should focus on, after the success of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, it should go to the next stage, which is the primary education sector. And the government should focus on primary development of secondary education, after primary education, and primary health for sustenance of longer run growth. Because if growth is a prime question, then in a year of recession, actually there should be two-pronged strategy for growth sustenance. One is the Keynesian policy of infrastructure investment in this year, which is not there in the budget at all, and next on the social sector, which sustains growth over the long run. Both things are lacking in this budget, if I am permitted.
Sir, what has the finance minister done if he hasn't done anything?
Actually, what he has done, I think he also doesn't understand what he has done. At least from the budget, it appears so. So far as I know, finance minister, because he's quite.
Do you think there was no maneuverability space, or space to maneuver or juggle with
No,
finance?
actually,
There was no money.
this is a point. You see, our problem with this whole trajectory is that we are so much obsessed with this fiscal deficits, as a result of which what Professor Sinha has correctly stated. At this point of juncture, when you are going through a recession, and when the recession is not global, not in that sense domestic, and there is an effect, even in the survey report it has published, it has also said that this is a global aspect is also involved there. At this point of time, if you do not see to expand your domestic market, if you do not think in terms of that, if you only depend how you can invite foreign investment, how you can export, this will not solve. You see, suppose in terms of employment.
But he said FDI, FII is imperative.
Yeah.
You can't do without it.
Yeah, but the problem is you should expand the domestic market. That is most important, and in that sense, you have to increase the purchasing capacity of people.
Sanjay,
And
does
in
the
that
budget do
case,
that?
infrastructure investment is one of the most important sectors wherever in the world, whenever this kind of decision has come up. It is the state who has intervened And even I can just cite you one example, though I do not agree with this principle. When the recession came up in USA, after the collapse of this banking industry, it is the US government who has come out with a bailout package.
Yes.
So I do not agree with that concept, the way they have done it. But they have come up with. But if you see UK or Greece, they have done the opposite thing. They have actually taken austerity measures. As a result, they are pruning the expenditure. As a result of which, what is happening in Greece, everyone is seeing that.
Manufacturing,
This is
but
important.
coming back to increasing the base of manufacturing, employment and social sector, all these aspects, what is one good green shoot that you see in the entire budget? One space which you think is really possible and it will grow, and that is when
We are talking of the positive side, which
Yes, yes.
might help the industry at large. I think they have decided, the finance minister has said that 1 lakh crore will be invested into infrastructure. Of course, I do not have the details till now, but then that seems to be a good idea. But one
He is
thing,
depending 47% of that he is
From
private
private
sector. Yes, absolutely. So that means 1 lakh crore, they have to get at least 47,000 crores.
there is one more point you need to
That's when they
see.
will invest it.
Yes.
There is one more point you need to see. You see, there is a recession, means there is a demand recession, and there is inflation also happening. How these two things are coming together? Don't you think it's a very odd situation? If there is a demand recession, there cannot be inflation. Normally, that is how a person will think.
I'll get in, Mr. Kothari. Mr. Kothari, on the tackling of inflation, do you see any steps?
No, I do not see any steps regarding tackling the inflation. In fact, he himself said that the common man is beset with inflation, and he quoted the figures that the headline inflation is 7% and the core inflation is 4.2, that has been brought down, but the food inflation persists. Now, even talking of Aam Aadmi, from 2 lakh to 2,20,000, he has said, I'll give a credit of 2,000 rupees. That means it works out to 167 rupees per month. And that too, there is a cash outflow first and then he will give the credit subsequently. Now, what sort of a relief is that to a common man or so-called Aam Aadmi? The second is, the tinkering goes on. At one place, the finance minister said that I am going to bring in within this budget session of parliament a direct taxes code. And he said, I'll be working in close consultation with the standing committee on finance chairman. But having said that, there are 50 amendments in this finance bill itself on the direct taxes front. At one place you are talking of bringing in a comprehensive bill, and then at another place on 28th February, the finance bill brings in 50 amendments to the income tax law. And then the tinkering goes on in the sense that there will be a 1% TDS, tax deducted at source, on purchase of immovable property exceeding rupees 50 lakhs. I mean, what is the point? What is he trying to achieve? I mean,
So it's neither here nor there.
Not there, exactly.
Yeah, I'll get in, Mr. Shah. Mr. Shah, on the export aspect, any favorable patches?
See, we have to realize that India's major trade partners grew by 6%. The GDP grew by 6% in the first quarter of 2010. In the third quarter of 2012, the GDP is only growing by 1%. So, we have to see that as far as global trade partners are concerned, their growth rate has declined. So we cannot expect a magical wand and create demand. You cannot create demand. The only thing is, you can compete with your other competing countries which are trying to eat into your market share. You have to eat into their market share. So the thing is, how you can make your export competitive.
This budget doesn't help you do that.
So, because it's a two-way sword. See, Narega definitely has increased the purchasing power in the villages, but at the same time, the cost of labor has gone up. So it's a two-edged sword. So if labor goes up, our competitiveness erodes.
Yes.
So, there has to be a very fine balance. Definitely the purchasing power will create, demand for products in India. But overall, our competitiveness, how to increase our competitiveness. Only thing we can hope is, with the amount of money that they are thinking of spending in infrastructure, that can reduce our transaction cost.
Yeah.
And
I'll get in. I'll get in a second. Second, anything that you want to add to that? Because you were like really agreeing with it.
Our competitiveness of our exports really will depend on the cost of production, and with rise in labor costs, it might go down the drain. But the other factor which impinges on the competitiveness of our exports is the high inflation rate, vis-a-vis the inflation rate in our competitor countries. And regarding inflation rate, the question which you started with there, the government hasn't done anything. Whatever it has done a wrong sets of policies, because the inflation in this country right now is very structural in nature. It's rises from the food sector, it is passed on to the industrial sector, and then there is overall rise in prices. And it is very structural in nature. Now, the set of policies which the government puts in is hike the interest rate. And if you hike the interest rate, there is a disincentive for investment, and there is lack of growth for the year. So that actually creates the problem of tackling inflation. You have not tackled inflation on one hand, you have led to lower growth on the other hand.
Yeah. Yes. Please.
Earlier when we get prime rate of interest, exporters used to get, especially the SME, prime rate minus interest subvention.
Right.
Now we have gone to base rate. So now we get base plus minus 2%. So we are paying a very high interest rate. If you want foreign currency loans, earlier, there was a cap of LIBOR plus 2%, then it became LIBOR plus 4%, that was RBI guideline. Now it's LIBOR. So what happens, interest cost is a very big component of our cost, and that is the killer.
That's
On a point in regard to the inflation, there is a self-contradiction in this overall approach of the government of India. You see, the kind of inflation that is now taking place is a cost-push inflation. When you are decontrolling diesel prices or oil prices or fuel prices, you are decontrolling it to contain the inflation and to restrict the import of oils or something like that. But that you can't do because that is the requirement of the country. Then what is happening, all the costs, it has its access in all production. When you are rising the cost, suppose the freight charges has been increased in the railway budget. It has its impact on the overall, all the commodities.
All the costs, yes.
And it is a cost pushing. The moment you are withdrawing subsidies, that the very moment you are withdrawing subsidies, the cost of production in agriculture in other sectors is going up. And that is why there is another kind of cost pushing. When you are trying to contain the fiscal deficit, in the name of containing fiscal deficit, you are constricting the subsidies that you are providing to the farmers or to other people that you are taking on. That is again helping in inflationary pressure on the.
But are you satisfied with the social sector spending, which is essentially means the education, health, and other sectors where, let's say this is election year, and the expectation was that there would be some sort of a Manrega or a loan waiver or something. That obviously they've been able to meet the expectations of the social sector, the education and the rural development. Has he gone beyond that or not?
No, actually, see what he has said. If you carefully listen to his speech, all the time what he has said the incremental percentage that is taken on the basis of the revised estimate, not on the basis of the planned estimate that he made before the budget in the last year. Therefore, there is a difference between the planned budget and the revised estimate. Revised estimate is quite low than the planned budget. So exactly that is the thing. Then when other than the inflation, the concept that Professor Kar said, that should be taken out. And if you've taken that aspect also, in that case, in terms of requirement of investment in the social sector in a country like ours, that is so inadequate an amount. It has little impact on the overall economy of the scenario.
Mr. Sinha, you wanted to add something?
My addition is that the kind of inflation, cost push inflation which Mr. Sen is talking about, and if you try to control that cost push inflation through interest rate management of the Reserve Bank of India, that's a completely wrong set of policies. You are not putting the house in order in terms of controlling inflation. Now, in this period, the inflation, headline inflation or core inflation has come down relatively because this is seasonal. I believe this is completely seasonal when the harvests are there. And the moment we move out to the summer seasons, you would see again inflation. I expect the inflation to pick up again with on the one side food prices going up further, and on top of that you have this diesel prices going up, leading to further escalation.
So basically there is no control. He has very little room to do these things.
Maneuver.
Okay. Anupam, you wanted to have?
You see, on the bright side is, we should concentrate on skill development. That is the only way, because presently there is
That you are provided for.
But see, the thing is providing and implementation. You might have the foot in your hand, but you have to,
But that's the state agency.
Yes, no.
That is the problem. What kind of skill you can develop?
So I really tell you, especially in Punjab and all these areas, there's a real shortage of labor. Because the people are, unable to get, because a lot of the labor used to go from Bihar and all these places.
I get it. So what he is trying to, he's tried to provide for skill development.
Because it's
how the implementation is going to happen, you have no clue. I'll get in, Mr. Yeah, one very important thing I want you to address is any innovation on the taxation front. Anything innovative that you can really find on the taxation front.
So one good thing which he has done is that he has reintroduced the concept of investment allowance. That is for every investment in plant and machinery exceeding 100 crores in infrastructure sector. Barring that, he has himself said that the current account deficit runs into $75 billion US. Now, one more thing, I believe the finance minister had good intention, but it's a very half-hearted attempt. He said, I'm increasing the deduction for house property if you borrow and construct or purchase a house property from 1.5 lakhs, which he said was fixed 10 years back. He has increased the limit to 2.5 lakhs. Very fine. But then there are restrictions. You should be first time buyer. That means you are taking out a large number of SSCs who had a house, now they want to construct a second house, or they want to sell off their first house and buy a second house, then you are not eligible. And then he said that housing sector will provide employment, housing sector will provide impetus to this transport sector, to this wood industry and all that. How is it going to do it if you are restricting it? At least there he should have been gracious enough to allow full deduction of 2.5
anything on the agriculture side, because agriculture has definitely got a lot of money, and your industry is related to that bit. Do you see any advantage, or you taking advantage of that money?
Before that, I have another point on the investment allowance.
Yes, quickly, please.
The investment allowance, he has done it, he wants to motivate industry. But he has given just 2 years. Now today, if I, Sanjay Agarwal, wants to put up an industry, I start planning today. It takes me 6 months, 8 months to conceive the idea. Then I start putting it up, it takes another 2 years to put it up. So whoever has started earlier may get the benefit of this, but it's not going to really push me to get into industry. You need to give me a 3-year or 4-year window actually to really understand that and get advantage of it. Actually.
Last thought, sir. Last thought.
Yeah, actually, this budget.
It's neither here nor there.
Yeah, it is a directionless budget in that sense. It has not directed, and not only that, I also believe that this growth trajectory that has been taken by the government of India will lead nowhere to our country. It will neither reduce the acute poverty, the discrimination that our society is suffering, the acute backwardness that our rural areas are suffering, the agricultural growth that is one of the major casualty during last 2 decades of our growth trajectory has not been addressed properly. Therefore, this budgetary exercise will not help our country to grow with inclusiveness and with a sustainable purpose.
That's all from Kolkata.